We can see the majority of the lake right now, not all of it, but the majority of it. And as you can see, Lake Arrowhead really isn't a very big lake. It's not huge, at least. It's about 2 miles long by 1 mile wide, just about 14 miles of shoreline. However, it is a very deep lake. At its deepest point, it's 185 feet deep. It averaged about 60 feet or so. But 185 feet, that's over double the depth of our neighbor Big Bear Lake. So why Lake Arrowhead here does not freeze over during the winter like Big Bear. It is too deep. Although it did freeze over once, and only once. This was back in 1949. That was the year downtown LA had almost a foot of snow. Maybe about 6 to 8 inches. We're going to be coming up on just one more celebrity home in this area. This area is called the Palisades, southeast side of the lake. Coming up right on the hill here closest to us, it's a white house with black shutters. Kind of a modest one for here out of the lake. Anyway, this house right here belongs to a former Olympic figure skater. Her name's Michelle Kwan. She started coming up here at a pretty young age, about 12, 13 years old, to train for the Olympics. Like a lot of athletes, they come up to the higher elevations to train. She used to skate at the old ice castle. It was the ice rink right over here in Blue Jay, about a mile away, until it actually collapsed. A little over 15 years now since it collapsed. A lot of people like to train up here, so another ice rink was built, called the Training Center. But just this last year, the owner of it decided he wanted to pack it all up and move his whole operation elsewhere. So for the first time in almost 60 years, there's no ice rink on this side of the mountain. Then, I didn't mention Lake Arrowhead is a man-made lake, in case anybody was wondering. I kind of bounce around a little bit. It is also a private lake. It's always been private as long as it's been here. It just used to be private with public access. I'm going to touch on that right now. If you look straight out in front of us, at about 1 o'clock, you might see a couple cars going by over there in a sec. That's Highway 173. On this side, the water side of the highway, is where the original dam was built by the Arrowhead Reservoir Company. They started construction in 1893. It took them almost 15 years to complete the dam. They can only work on it during the summer. Then it took almost another 10 years just for this lake to fill up. Lake Arrowhead here is all rainwater and snowmelt. There's no outside source of water brought in. That's why the level of the lake really fluctuates depending solely on how good of a winter we have. Dry winter like last winter equals the low lake like right now. You'll see just how low it is when we get over by the historic Blue Tower here. But like I said, the lake used to be private with public access. When it went completely private, some of you may or may not remember 1971, pretty big earthquake in this area called the Sealmar earthquake. After the Sealmar earthquake, the state started coming around and inspecting all concrete structures like our dam here to make sure they were safe and sound, that sort of thing. The state came up and had a look at our dam and found it to be 100% unsafe. This one, the lake, again, was a private lake with public access. It was owned by a company named Boise Cascade. Some of you may have heard of them. Boise Cascade had a meeting with the state. I guess told them, okay, we can just drain 75 feet of water out of the lake and make the dam unusable. Homeowners got wind of this, and as you would imagine, they weren't too fond of that idea. 75 feet is just a little bit. So the homeowners all got together. They formed what's now called the ALA, or Arrowhead Lake Association. They bought the lake from Boise Cascade for a pretty good price, right around $450,000. Then they had a $7 million bond measure passed and had a brand new dam built. You obviously can't see it, but it's about 100 yards east of the highway here, where the old dam sits. We have 2 dams now. Also a little lake right on the other side of the highway here called Lake Papoose. Lake Papoose is designed to exert back pressure off the old dam and have 2 bodies of water that just hold the old dam in place. But anyway, again, the Sealmar earthquake was in 71. This whole change of ownership was happening in the early 70s. Since 1975, Lake Arrowhead has been completely private. It's owned by the homeowners around the lake. Everybody follow me so far? Having fun yet? Those are very enthusiastic. Real quick, these buildings over here to the right are part of the North Shore Marina, even though it's the east side of the lake. To the far right is a boat launch. Get your boat on and off the water. The one and only fueling dock's right over there. Get some gas in your boat. The ALA main office. A little burger shack called Jake's on the Lake, only open during the summer months. And that big tan building over there, I don't know if you can see it, says Lake Arrowhead on it. It's actually a big boat garage or a boat storage. Believe it or not, they can fit over 200 boats in that building, all stacked on top of one another. Right around $3,000 a year to keep your boat there. The price kind of fluctuates through the winter. on Lake Arrowhead, around Lake Arrowhead. Over 300 movies were shot in this area and the surrounding cities. Probably not a lot of you, but has anybody on the boat ever seen the movie Magnificent Obsession with Jane Wyman and Rock Hudson? I believe it was filmed in 1954-ish. Anyway, if you look up on the hill here coming up, you'll see a light green colored house. It's like there's some plastic biscuit wrapped around part of it. Anyway, that house right there was Jane Wyman's in the movie, just in the setting of the movie. One of the older homes on the lake. And any ER fans on the boat? Anybody watching ER? As we get up here, not this tan house we can see in plain sight on the water. Again, it's going to be their neighbor to the left. It's a white house coming up, tucked behind the trees with a pretty nice landscape yard. This house right here belongs to Eric LaSalle from ER. Owned that house for over 20 years. Then if you can look straight out in front of us again, kind of see where I'm pointing right now, up on the hill in between the pine trees. Looks like there's a gazebo in front of that house. That's called the Hilltop Estate. That house went on the market a little over 2 years ago now for $16.8 million. They haven't had any takers yet. Since then they've lowered it to just under $15 million, quite a bargain. And apparently that house used to be a favorite hangout of Marilyn Monroe. So they say. Everybody still hear me okay? Doing good, doing fine? Coming up over to the right here behind these oak trees is a big stone house. This house right here belongs to one of the animators of Disney. His name was Bill Keane. He wrote Bill Keane Comics. He did the family circus articles in the newspaper. His son now owns that house. That's going to be the only house on the lake with a helipad. Gotta have a helipad. Then there's going to be another big house coming up at about 1 o'clock with a bunch of big windows. You'll see it better as we pass by. People like to call this the Darth Vader house. This area is called Eagle Point, but this house is part of one of the gated communities around the lake. This one's called Shelter Cove. This area up here to the right is called Shelter Cove. Anyway, this house right here used to be a favorite hangout of former U.S. presidents Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford. All those big glass windows that you see that wrap around this house are all going to be bulletproof. This one would have the helipad. And one of the couple things we're going to be looking at the left side of the boat today is the historic Blue Tower. As we pass it, you'll see the full line, kind of get you an idea of how low the lake is right now. Believe it or not, the past few storms we had put about 2 feet of water back into the lake, which is quite a bit. The way the lake was designed just to funnel all the rainwater and snow melt. This is going to be the deepest part of the lake right over in this area. That tower right there is 195 feet tall. And there are actually 3 underground tunnels dug underneath the lake that lead to the tower here. At their longest, only 6.5 miles. The Arrowhead Reservoir Company's original design for the tower, tunnels, and the lake itself was to get water from right here to just south of us to the orange groves in San Bernardino when we hit those underground tunnels. The only problem with that is if that dam wasn't here, the natural flow of all this water would head north to the ranchers in the high desert who have always depended on this water. When those ranchers found out that they were trying to divert this water from its natural watershed, they got a little upset. Enough to file a lawsuit and sue the Arrowhead Reservoir Company for rights to this water, which I didn't know you could do something like that. The courts ended up ruling in favor of these ranchers. They got 2 things from this lawsuit. For one, the Arrowhead Reservoir Company wasn't allowed to divert all this water to the southern lowlands for anything other than domestic use. They also got some floodgates that I'll point out in a few minutes. They get all the water if this lake ever overflows, which is kind of rare nowadays, and everything just below it, which is still millions upon millions of gallons. Another big house coming up on the hill right here at about 3 o'clock. The little castle to be behind the trees. That house in its original state is one of the older homes on the lake, over 100 years old right there. But it's also one of those remodels. Another one of those homes that used to be about 1,500 square feet. The only problem with that house is they've been working on it now for literally just over a decade. A little bit of an extended renovation. I'm sure everyone noticed this big brown house coming up with all this stonework underneath it. Some of you might be familiar with the Max Factor Cosmetics. This house right here once belonged to Max Factor. They almost look like steps leading straight up to the houses. Can everybody see those? Those are actually tracks for a tram, or a funicular is what they call them. You can get in it, cart yourself on down to the lake, or put your stuff in it, rather than carry it all down a couple hundred steps. Makes life just a little bit easier. And actually the first one ever built on the lake, coming up just to the left of these stone steps underneath the trees. Kind of a rusty looking color. They got on pretty quick. You'll see a few more as we go around, mainly in the steeper properties like these ones. A lot of steep properties around Lake Arrowhead you will notice. Then right now we're going to be coming up and passing one of the nicer homes on the lake, my house right here on the water. Pretty nice, huh? It's all about location. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a trail that goes all the way around Lake Arrowhead, about 30 feet up from the shoreline, say. Again, almost 14 miles of shoreline. The trail is a little over 17 miles all the way around. It is technically a private trail. Every couple of miles there's a gate. You have to type in the code just to keep going. Just in case you don't have lake rights and you're planning on walking it. The association is pretty adamant about their privacy. Also, very good fishing in Lake Arrowhead. A lot of people refer to it as an untapped resource. Again, because there's no public access and really not too many private fishermen. The Arrowhead Lake Association homeowners. Not that important in a fishing game, pay for this lake to be stocked with fish. You still need a fishing license, which doesn't make really any sense at all, but that's a whole other story.